Hello, everyone. Welcome to my stream where it is a Sunday. So, welcome back. My name is Rix Leone, and we are starting story time again today. Yay, story time. So, hold on, I'm on the wrong page. Alright. Anyway, like I said, my name is Rix Leone. It is 7 Pillar Sunday, which is kind of a little... kind of just reset, talk about how the week went, what we're hoping to achieve in the next week, and then we'll be starting The Great Gatsby. So, alright, so how did the week go today? How did the week go today? Yeah, that makes sense. Hey Teshin, how are you? Okay, so, how did the week go? I went good. We got the platinum for Kingdom Hearts, which is great. We're gonna be we're talking about this in a bit, but workouts were a little off. I ended up taking from Friday to today. I kind of just took a little easier with the workout. Didn't do any weightlifting, didn't do any rucking, just kind of went for a walk. Kind of was like waking up and feeling a little tired. So I was like, kind of listened to my body and I still wanted to, I'm doing this like my own summer challenge inspired by 75 Hard. So still had to do something active twice a day, with one of them being outside. So I just ended up going for a walk around the block. Back to weightlifting tomorrow, and actually starting a new routine since it's August, and really going to start pushing on the muscles I need to for my competition in August of next year. So we're getting close to a year away. So it's probably going to be the end of August, so I can still say technically it's 13 months away from that, but it'll be here before we know it. So we got to keep focusing. No setbacks. Okay, so let me see if I can find my little card with my 7 pillars, because I always forget one of them. But okay, so first off, I guess, what are my goals for this week for my 7 pillars? So styling, I guess really it's to kind of grow back my beard. Like, I kind of had a mishap with the beard, trimmed a little too close, and then I decided to just shave it off and kind of get used to that, and I don't like it, so I'm growing it back. So hopefully it'll grow a little thicker, and by this time next week. So that's kind of my big fashion goal. It's just kind of more waiting game than anything. Finances, I just downloaded an app. I know I missed one for that. But finances, I just downloaded this app. Plynk, Plynk. And it's supposed to be like, it's what I've been looking for, where you're playing around with the stock market, real stocks, but you're not using real money. So it's kind of how you can learn to invest without the risk of losing all your money. So I downloaded it. I tried to sign up for it. And like it says, okay, we're going to send you a one-time code to your phone number. And it came like 2 hours later. I'm not quite sure what the issue was with that. But that was... that was something. So I tried to get that signed up for it, and then kind of mess around with that and see and kind of learn investing. And then okay, let me try to bring up. I'm always missing one of my things. So Monday, social. Really still kind of what it was like last week is try to increase my social interactions and work on my eye contact with people. The video I watched the video today on like how to walk with confidence, and so that's something I'm going to be. I kind of wrote down all of the steps. Oh, that's one of my goals. Actually, a monthly goal is I got me 7 notebooks, and I'm going to be writing down the information I learned from each video, and then trying to actually apply it instead of just hearing it and then forgetting it. So keeping up with that is one of my goals for the month. But yeah, trying to increase eye contact and interactions with people. I'm getting better at like saying hi to people as I walk past the streets. So I try not to take it personal when people don't say hi back. Like they might not have heard me, they might not realize I was talking to them. But it still kind of hurts. I need to get work on that. Wednesday fitness. Really want to kind of keep with this routine. Try to get my diet I'm still learning that. I saw a video on it. It's like work on your eye contact, and it was literally just a girl looking at the camera for like 5 minutes. So I'm still trying to figure that out, but I'm just trying to keep looking forward at the person and not like look away. That's kind of what I'm talking about when I'm saying eye contact. Actually, one of the things they were talking about on the video was today on walking is like, don't look at your feet, keep looking forward. That's something I'm guilty of doing, is just looking at my feet. And so that's one of the things I definitely need to work on. And then, so fitness, really need to, I'm not starting a new diet this month, but next month I will be, so I kind of want to start hammering down the details for that. It's going to be kind of tough because it's going to be like having to figure out my maintenance, but I can't figure that out till I know what my final weight is after my cut. So we'll so it might be a little tough to do, but and then kind of keep up with my new workout routine. Kind of a monthly goal is to figure out what my max or what my working weight is for the set. Social media, I'm really going to be focusing on Instagram. So again, I probably won't be posting on Instagram until my beard comes back in. But I would like to really, that's kind of my month's goal for this, is to really focus on Instagram, start filming B-roll for reels, writing down ideas for reels. Gardening goals, really, it's more lawn care than gardening, but I really want to start working on trying to keep watering the front and backyard, try to get the looking green, and I would like to learn to edge and really just try to get the front and backyard looking nice for my dad so he can have a lawn he's proud of again. That's kind of my main focus for that, and keeping my plants alive. I also need to harvest my peppers. They're getting kind of big and heavy, and the plant actually fell over the other day because they're so heavy. Saturday photography, really just kind of messing around with camera more and learning the settings, and I want to make a cheat sheet. I have like a bunch of index cards. I'm just going to make like a cheat sheet of like, okay, this setting does this setting does that, and how to read it on my phone, and then I can always just keep it in my wallet, and then when I'm out taking pictures, I can kind of refer to that until I have that all memorized. And I think that's all 7. Social, style, fitness, social media, photography, gardening, and finances. So, yeah. So, as for the schedule for this week, we will be yeah. That's what I've kind of heard from the podcast I've been listening to. So, and then but the schedule for this week, we're starting Great Gatsby after this, and then tomorrow we'll be starting Chain of Memories. We'll be doing that Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. I am off Wednesday. For Grab Bag Saturday, we are going to be going for the online trophies for Infamous 2, Festival of Blood, and I might also do God of War Ascensions. But the main focus will be the 2 Infamous games, because those servers are closing on the 31st. And so once that happens, you won't be able to get those trophies, which means you won't be able to get the platinum anymore. So, but other than that, and then I'm just gonna do. I might do God of War. Like I said, God of War Ascension. Also, that online trophy is very short, but they haven't announced a server closing date for that. But it's better to just get it out of the way, and then when I finally get to the God of War series, we'll have it, and we don't have to worry about that. So, if you guys got any questions, now's the time to ask, and then we might take a quick break as I get ready for story time. So, any questions or anything you want to talk about? Now's the chance. All right, you're good. So, give me just a few minutes. I'm gonna take a quick break. Um, we'll reset. I'll probably run ads. Just to reset the pre-roll, and then we'll start story time. So I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Hello, welcome to Story Time with Rix Leone. I am your host, Rix Leone, and today we are starting The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is a blind listen to. And thanks for the compliment session. But this is a blind listen. I've never read this book. I've never seen any of the movies. But since we're starting a new book, I decided to ask Claude for some fun facts. This is AI, so the information on here might be wrong, but this is what it said. F. Scott Fitzgerald almost titled it something else entirely. He considered the names like Tumultual and West Egg, Gold-Hatted Gatsby, The High Bouncing Lover before settling on The Great Gatsby. It flopped when it was published. In 1925, the novel sold poorly and got mixed reviews. Fitzgerald died in 1940 believing himself a failure. The book only became a massive success later, especially after World War II when it was distributed to soldiers. The setting is based on real places. West Egg and East Egg are stand-ins for the Great Neck and Sand Point on Long Island, where Fitzgerald himself lived while writing early drafts. The Valley of Ash was inspired by a real dumping ground. There was an actual ash dump in Queens, New York, between Long Island and Manhattan, that Fitzgerald used as his model. Fitzgerald was obsessed with color and light imagery. He revised the manuscript extensively with his editor, Max Perkins, especially to sharpen symbolic details. The green light became a famous example. The novel is now public domain as of 2021 in the US, which is why we're listening to it, which has led to a wave of retellings, prequels, and even a Great Gatsby video game. I did look this up, and apparently there's actually a couple Great Gatsby games. There was one that came out for the NES. It looks like it was like a typical NES platformer. And then there's one for the PC that looks like, I think that's what they're referring to. And it looks like it's more of a like hidden item game. But those were the only two Great Gatsby games I could find. So anyway, let's start. And if you can let me know if you're hearing it. I hope I got it all set up, but also, if you guys don't know, Storytime, we're going to be playing a game while listening to this. And it's also the dramatized edition, so it'll be actors or other readers reading for the different characters. So, let's begin. Wait.
Dramatis Personae of The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain.
J. Gatsby, read by Thomas Peter.
Daisy Buchanan, read by Jasmine Selma.
Tom Buchanan, read by Larry Wilson.
Jordan Baker, read by Jen Broda.
Nick Carraway, read by T.J. Burns.
Meyer Wolfsheim, read by False Citron.
George Wilson, read by Alan Mapstone.
Myrtle Wilson, read by Matea Bracic.
Catherine, read by Kim Lamb.
Mr. McKee, read by Chuck Williamson.
Mrs. McKee, read by Amelia Chesley.
Michaelis, read by Kevin S.
Mr. Klipspringer, read by Andrew Gauntz.
Owl Eyes, read by Matthew Reese. Nick's Dad, read by Craig Franklin.
Dr. Civet, read by Diana Kennedy.
Policeman, read by Kyle Donnellan.
Mr. Gats, read by Sean.
Woman 1, read by Serena Rose.
Woman 2, read by Eleonora Bettenzoli.
Woman 3, read by Hannah F.
Drunk Driver, read by Craig Franklin.
Girl 1, read by Michelle Eaton.
Reporter, read by David Poity.
Lucille, read by Magda Wild.
Dog Breeder, read by Ambi Sweet 13.
Slagle, read by Son of the Exiles.
Waiter, read by Diana Kennedy.
Tom's Butler, read by Mitch.
Gatsby's Butler, read by Weston Ledlow.
Witness, read by Craig Franklin.
Orchestra Leader, read by David Purdy.
Man 2, read by Diana Kennedy.
Horsewoman, read by Amelia Chesley.
Mr. Sloan, read by Kyle Donnellan.
Miss Baedecker, read by Serena Rose.
Dan Cody, read by Mitch.
Conductor, read by David Purdy.
Stella, read by Magda Wild.
Gardener, read by Mitch.
Elevator Boy, read by Diana Kennedy.
Pammy and Boy 1, read by Jasmine Selma.
Chauffeur, read by Chuck Williamson.
End of Dramatis Personae. Chapter 1 of The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. In my younger and more vulnerable years, my father gave me some advice that I've been turning over in my mind ever since.
Whenever you feel like criticizing anyone,
he told me,
just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you've had.
He didn't say any more, but we've always been unusually communicative in a reserved way, and I understood that he meant a great deal more than that. In consequence, I'm inclined to reserve all judgments, a habit that has opened up many curious natures to me, and also made me the victim of a few veteran bores. The abnormal mind is quick to detect and attach itself to this quality when it appears in a normal person, and so it came about that in college I was unjustly accused of being a politician, because I was privy to the secret griefs of wild, unknown men. Most of the confidences were unsought. Frequently I feigned sleep, preoccupation, or a hostile levity when I realized by some unmistakable sign that an intimate revelation was quivering on the horizon. For intimate revelations of young men, or at least the terms in which they express them, are usually plagiaristic and marred by obvious suppressions. Reserving judgments is a matter of infinite hope. I am still a little afraid of missing something if I forget that, as my father snobbishly suggested. And I snobbishly repeat, a sense of the fundamental decencies is parceled out unequally at birth. And after boasting this way of my tolerance, I come to the admission that it has a limit. Conduct may be founded on the hard rock or the wet marshes, but after a certain point, I don't care what it's founded on. When I came back from the East last autumn, I felt that I wanted the world to be in uniform and at a sort of moral attention forever. I wanted no more riotous excursions with privileged glimpses into the human heart. Only Gatsby, the man who gives his name to this book, was exempt from my reaction. Gatsby, who represented everything for which I have an unaffected scorn. If personality is an unbroken series of successful gestures, then there was something gorgeous about him. Some heightened sensitivity to the promises of life. As if he were related to one of those intricate machines that register earthquakes 10,000 miles away. This responsiveness had nothing to do with that flabby impressionability which is dignified under the name of creative temperament. It was an extraordinary gift for hope, a romantic readiness such as I have never found in any other person, and which it is not likely I shall ever find again. No, Gatsby turned out all right in the end. It is what preyed on Gatsby, what foul dust floated in the wake of his dreams, that temporarily closed out my interest in the abortive sorrows and short-winded elations of men. My family have been prominent, well-to-do people in this Midwestern city for 3 generations. The Carraways are something of a clan, and we have a tradition that we're descended from the Dukes of Buccleuch. But the actual founder of my line was my grandfather's brother, who came here in '51, sent a substitute to the Civil War, and started the wholesale hardware business that my father carries on today. I never saw this great-uncle, but I'm supposed to look like him, with special reference to the rather hard-boiled painting that hangs in Father's office. I graduated from New Haven in 1915, just a quarter of a century after my father, and a little later I participated in that delayed Teutonic migration known as the Great War. I enjoyed the counter-raid so thoroughly that I came back restless. Instead of being the warm center of the world, the Middle West now seemed like the ragged edge of the universe. So I decided to go east and learn the bond business. Everybody I knew was in the bond business, so I supposed it could support one more single man. All my aunts and uncles talked it over as if they were choosing a prep school for me, and finally said, "Why, yes," with very grave, hesitant faces. Father agreed to finance me for a year, and after various delays I came east. Permanently, I thought, in the spring of '22. The practical thing was to find rooms in the city, but it was a warm season and I had just left a country of wide lawns and friendly trees, so when a young man at the office suggested that we take a house together in a commuting town, it sounded like a great idea. He found the house, a weather-beaten cardboard bungalow at $80 a month, but at the last minute the firm ordered him to Washington, and I went out to the country alone. I had a dog. At least I had him for a few days until he ran away. And an old Dodge. And a Finnish woman who made my bed and cooked breakfast and muttered Finnish wisdom to herself over the electric stove. It was lonely for a day or so, until one morning some man, more recently arrived than I, stopped me on the road.
"How do you get to West Egg Village?"
he asked helplessly. I told him, and as I walked on I was lonely no longer. I was a guide, a pathfinder, an original settler. He had casually conferred on me the freedom of the neighborhood. And so, with the sunshine and the great bursts of leaves growing on the trees, just as things grow in fast movies, I had that familiar conviction that life was beginning over again with the summer. There was so much to read, for one thing, and so much fine health to be pulled down out of the young, breath-giving air. I bought a dozen volumes on banking and credit and investment securities, and they stood on my shelf in red and gold like new money from the mint, promising to unfold shining secrets that only Midas and Morgan and Maecenas knew. And I had the high intention of reading many other books besides. I was rather literary in college. One year I wrote a series of very solemn and obvious editorials for the Yale News. And now I was going to bring back all such things into my life and become again that most limited of all specialists, the well-rounded man. This isn't just an epigram. Life is much more successfully looked at from a single window, after all. It was a matter of chance that I should have rented a house in one of the strangest communities in North America. It was on that slender, riotous island, which extends itself due east of New York, and where there are, among other natural curiosities, 2 unusual formations of land. 20 miles from the city, a pair of enormous eggs, identical in contour and separated only by a courtesy bay, jut out into the most domesticated body of salt water in the Western Hemisphere, the great wet barnyard of Long Island Sound. They are not perfect ovals. Like the egg in the Columbus story, they are both crushed flat at the contact end. But their physical resemblance must be a source of perpetual confusion to the gulls that fly overhead. To the wingless, a more arresting phenomenon is their dissimilarity in every particular except shape and size. I lived at West Egg, the less fashionable of the two, though this is a most superficial tag to express the bizarre and not a little sinister contrast between them. My house was at the very tip of the egg, only 50 yards from the Sound, and squeezed between two huge places that rented for $12,000 or $15,000 a season. The one on my right was a colossal affair by any standard. It was a factual imitation of some Hotel de Ville in Normandy, with a tower on one side, spanking new under a thin beard of raw ivy, and a marble swimming pool, and more than 40 acres of lawn and garden. It was Gatsby's mansion. Or rather, as I didn't know Mr. Gatsby, it was a mansion inhabited by a gentleman of that name. My own house was an eyesore, but it was a small eyesore, and it had been overlooked. So I had a view of the water, a partial view of my neighbor's lawn, and the consoling proximity of millionaires, all for $80 a month. Across the courtesy bay, the white palaces of fashionable East Egg glittered along the water. And the history of the summer really begins on the evening I drove over there to have dinner with the Tom Buchanans. Daisy was my second cousin once removed, and I'd known Tom in college. And just after the war, I spent 2 days with them in Chicago. Her husband, among various physical accomplishments, had been one of the most powerful ends that ever played football at New Haven. A national figure in a way. One of those men who reach such an acute limited excellence at 21 that everything afterwards savors of anticlimax. His family were enormously wealthy. Even in college, his freedom with money was a matter for reproach. But now he'd left Chicago and come east in a fashion that rather took your breath away. For instance, he brought down a string of polo ponies from Lake Forest. It was hard to realize that a man in my own generation was wealthy enough to do that. Why they came east, I don't know. They had spent a year in France for no particular reason, and then drifted here and there unrestfully, wherever people played polo and were rich together.
This was a permanent move,
said Daisy over the telephone, but I didn't believe it. I had no sight into Daisy's heart, but I felt that Tom would drift on forever, seeking a little wistfully for the dramatic turbulence of some irrecoverable football game. And so it happened that on a warm, windy evening, I drove over to East Egg to see 2 old friends, whom I scarcely knew at all. Their house was even more elaborate than I expected. A cheerful red and white Georgian colonial mansion overlooking the bay. The lawn started at the beach and ran toward the front door for a quarter of a mile, jumping over sundials and brick walks and burning gardens. Finally, when it reached the house, drifting up the side in bright vines, as though from the momentum of its run. The front was broken by a line of French windows, glowing now with reflected gold, and wide open to the warm, windy afternoon, and Tom Buchanan in riding clothes was standing with his legs apart on the front porch. He had changed since his New Haven years. Now he was a sturdy, straw-haired man of 30, with a rather hard mouth and a supercilious manner. 2 shining, arrogant eyes had established dominance over his face and gave him the appearance of always leaning aggressively forward. Not even the effeminate swank of his riding clothes could hide the enormous power of that body. He seemed to fill those glistening boots until he strained the top lacing, and you could see a great pack of muscles shifting when his shoulder moved under his thin coat. It was a body capable of enormous leverage. A cruel body. His speaking voice, a gruff, husky tenor, added to the impression of fractiousness he conveyed. There was a touch of paternal contempt in it, even toward people he liked. And there were men at New Haven who had hated his guts.
Now, don't think my opinion on these matters is final,
he seemed to say.
Just because I'm stronger and more of a man than you are.
We were in the same senior society, and while we were never intimate, I always had the impression that he approved of me and wanted me to like him with some harsh, defiant wistfulness of his own. We talked for a few minutes on the sunny porch.
I've got a nice place here,
he said, his eyes flashing about restlessly. Turning me around by one arm, he moved a broad, flat hand along the front vista, including in its sweep a sunken Italian garden, a half-acre of deep, pungent roses, and a snub-nosed motorboat that bumped the tide offshore.
It belonged to Damon, the oil man.
He turned me around again, politely and abruptly.
We'll go inside.
We walked through a high hallway into a bright rosy-colored space, fragilely bound into the house by French windows at either end. The windows were ajar and gleaming white against the fresh grass outside that seemed to grow a little way into the house. A breeze blew through the room, blew curtains in at one end and out the other, like pale flags, twisting them up toward the frosted wedding cake of the ceiling, and then rippled over the wine-colored rug, making a shadow on it as wind does on the sea. The only completely stationary object in the room was an enormous couch on which two young women were buoyed up as though upon an anchored balloon. They were both in white, and their dresses were rippling and fluttering, as if they had just been blown back in after a short flight around the house. I must have stood for a few minutes, listening to the whip and snap of the curtains and the groan of a picture on the wall. Then there was a boom as Tom Buchanan shut the rear windows, and the caught wind died out about the room, and the curtains and the rugs and the two young women ballooned slowly to the floor. The younger of the two was a stranger to me. She was extended full length at her end of the divan, completely motionless, and with her chin raised a little as if she were balancing something on it which was quite likely to fall. If she saw me out of the corner of her eyes, she gave no hint of it. Indeed, I was almost surprised into murmuring an apology for having disturbed her by coming in. The other girl, Daisy, made an attempt to rise. She leaned slightly forward with a conscientious expression. Then she laughed, an absurd, charming little laugh. And I laughed too, and came forward into the room.
I'm paralyzed with happiness.
She laughed again, as if she said something very witty, and held my hand for a moment, looking up into my face, promising that there was no one in the world she so much wanted to see. That was a way she had. She hinted in a murmur that the surname of the balancing girl was
Baker.
I've heard it said that Daisy's murmur was only to make people lean toward her, an irrelevant criticism that made it no less charming. At any rate, Miss Baker's lips fluttered. She nodded at me almost imperceptibly, and then quickly tipped her head back again. The object she was balancing had obviously tottered a little and given her something of a fright. Again, a sort of apology arose to my lips. Almost any exhibition of complete self-sufficiency draws a stunned tribute from me. I looked back at my cousin, who began to ask me questions in her low, thrilling voice. It was the kind of voice that the ear follows up and down as if each speech is an arrangement of notes that will never be played again. Her face was sad and lovely, with bright things in it. Bright eyes and a bright, passionate mouth. But there was an excitement in her voice that men who had cared for her found it difficult to forget. A singing compulsion, a whispered,
"Listen."
A promise that she had done gay, exciting things just a while since. and that there were gay, exciting things hovering in the next hour. I told her how I had stopped off in Chicago for a day on my way east, and how a dozen people had sent their love through me.
Do they miss me?
She cried ecstatically. The whole town is desolate. All the cars have the left rear wheel painted black as a mourning wreath. And there's a persistent wail all night along the North Shore.
How gorgeous! Let's go back, Tom. Tomorrow.
Then she added irrelevantly,
You ought to see the baby.
I'd like to.
She's asleep. She's 2 years old now. Haven't you ever seen her?
Never.
Well, you ought to see her. She's...
Tom Buchanan, who had been hovering restlessly about the room, stopped and rested his hand on my shoulder.
What are you doing, Nick?
I'm a bondman.
Who with?
I told him.
Never heard of them,
he remarked decisively. This annoyed me. You will, I answered shortly. You will if you stay in the East.
Oh, I'll stay in the East. Don't you worry,
he said, glancing at Daisy, and then back at me, as if he were alert for something more.
I'd be a goddamn fool to live anywhere else.
At this point, Miss Baker said,
Absolutely.
With such suddenness that I started. It was the first word she uttered since I came into the room. Evidently it surprised her as much as it did me, for she yawned and with a series of rapid, deft movements, stood up into the room.
I'm stiff,
she complained.
I've been lying on that sofa for as long as I can remember.
Don't look at me,
Daisy retorted.
I've been trying to get you to New York all afternoon.
No thanks,
said Miss Baker to the 4 cocktails just in from the pantry.
I'm absolutely in training.
Her host looked at her incredulously.
You are?
He took down his drink as if it were a drop in the bottom of a glass.
How you ever get anything done is beyond me.
I looked at Miss Baker, wondering what it was she got done. I enjoyed looking at her. She was a slender, small-breasted girl, with an erect carriage which she accentuated by throwing her body backward at the shoulders like a young cadet. Her gray, sun-strained eyes looked back at me with polite, reciprocal curiosity out of a wan, charming, discontented face. It occurred to me now that I had seen her, or a picture of her somewhere before.
You live in West Egg,
she remarked contemptuously.
I know somebody there.
I don't know a single...
You must know Gatsby.
Gatsby?
demanded Daisy.
What Gatsby?
Before I could reply that he was my neighbor, dinner was announced. Wedging his tense arm imperatively under mine, Tom Buchanan compelled me from the room as though he were moving a checker to another square. Slenderly, languidly, their hands set lightly on their hips, the 2 young women preceded us out onto a rosy-colored porch open to the sunset, where 4 candles flickered on the table in the diminished wind.
Why candles?
objected Daisy, frowning. She snapped them out with her fingers.
In 2 weeks it'll be the longest day in the year.
She looked at us all radiantly.
Do you always watch for the longest day in the year and then miss it? I always watch for the longest day in the year and then miss it.
We ought to plan something,
yawned Miss Baker, sitting down at the table as if she were getting into bed.
All right,
said Daisy.
What'll we plan?
She turned to me helplessly.
What do people plan?
Before I could answer, her eyes fastened with an odd expression on her little finger.
Look!
She complained.
I heard it.
We all looked. The knuckle was black and blue.
You did it, Tom,
she said accusingly.
I know you didn't mean to, but you did do it. That's what I get for marrying a brute of a man. A great big hulking physical specimen of a...
I hate that word, hulking,
objected Tom crossly.
Even in kidding.
Hulking,
insisted Daisy. Sometimes she and Miss Baker talked at once, unobtrusively, and with a bantering inconsequence that was never quite chatter, that was as cool as their white dresses and their impersonal eyes in the absence of all desire. They were here. They accepted Tom and me, making only a polite, pleasant effort to entertain or to be entertained. They knew that presently dinner would be over, and a little later the evening too would be over and casually put away. It was sharply different from the West, where an evening was hurried from phase to phase toward its close in a continually disappointed anticipation, or else in a sheer nervous dread of the moment itself. "You make me feel uncivilized, Daisy," I confessed on my second glass of corky but rather impressive claret. "Can't you talk about crops or something?" I meant nothing in particular by this remark, but it was taken up in an unexpected way.
"Civilization's going to pieces,"
broke out Tom violently.
"I've gotten to be a terrible pessimist about things. Have you read The Rise of the Colored Empires by this man Goddard?"
"Why, no," I answered, rather surprised by his tone.
"Well, it's a fine book, and everybody ought to read it. The idea is, if we don't look out, the white race will be utterly submerged. It's all scientific stuff. It's been proved."
Tom's getting very profound,
said Daisy with an expression of unthoughtful sadness.
He reads deep books with long words in them. What was that word
"Well, these books are all scientific,"
insisted Tom, glancing at her impatiently.
"This fellow has worked out the whole thing. It's up to us, who are the dominant race, to watch out, or these other races will have control of things."
"We've got to beat them down,"
whispered Daisy, winking ferociously towards the fervent sun.
"You ought to live in California,"
began Miss Baker, but Tom interrupted her by shifting heavily in his chair.
"This idea is that we're Nordics. I am, and you are, and you are, and—"
After an infinitesimal hesitation, he included Daisy with a slight nod, and she winked at me again.
"And we've produced all the things that go to make civilization. Oh, science and art and all that. Do you see?"
There was something pathetic in his concentration, as if his complacency, more acute than of old, was not enough to him anymore. When almost immediately the telephone rang inside and the butler left the porch, Daisy seized upon the momentary interruption and leaned toward me.
"I'll tell you a family secret,"
she whispered enthusiastically.
"It's about the butler's nose. Do you want to hear about the butler's nose?"
"That's why I came over tonight."
"Well, he hasn't always been a butler. He used to be the silver polisher for some people in New York that had a silver service for 200 people. He had to polish it from morning till night until finally it began to affect his nose."
"Things went from bad to worse,"
suggested Miss Baker.
"Yes, things went from bad to worse until finally he had to give up his position."
For a moment the last sunshine fell with romantic affection upon her glowing face. Her voice compelled me forward, breathlessly as I listened. Then the glow faded, each light deserting her with lingering regret, like children leaving a pleasant street at dusk. The butler came back and murmured something close to Tom's ear, whereupon Tom frowned, pushed back his chair, and without a word went inside. As if his absence quickened something within her, Daisy leaned forward again, her voice glowing and singing.
"I love to see you at my table, Nick. You remind me of a rose, an absolute rose. Doesn't he?"
She turned to Miss Baker for confirmation.
"An absolute rose."
This was untrue. I am not even faintly like a rose. She was only extemporizing, but a stirring warmth flowed from her, as if her heart was trying to come out to you, concealed in one of those breathless, thrilling words. Then suddenly she threw her napkin on the table and excused herself, and went into the house. Miss Baker and I exchanged a short glance, consciously devoid of meaning. I was about to speak when she sat up alertly and said, "Shh," in a warning voice. A subdued, impassioned murmur was audible in the room beyond, and Miss Baker leaned forward, unashamed, trying to hear. The murmur trembled on the verge of coherence, sank down, mounted excitedly, and then ceased altogether. "This Mr. Gatsby you spoke of is my neighbor," I said.
Don't talk. I want to hear what happens.
"Is something happening?" I inquired innocently.
You mean to say you don't know?
Said Miss Baker, honestly surprised.
I thought everybody knew.
I don't.
Why,
she said hesitantly.
Tom's got some woman in New York.
Got some woman? I repeated blankly. Miss Baker nodded.
She might have the decency not to telephone him at dinner time, don't you think?
Almost before I had grasped her meaning, there was a flutter of a dress and a crunch of leather boots, and Tom and Daisy were back at the table.
It couldn't be helped,
cried Daisy with tense gaiety. She sat down, glanced searchingly at Miss Baker, and then at me, and continued.
I looked outdoors for a minute, and it's very romantic outdoors. There's a bird on the lawn that I think must be a nightingale, come over on the Cunard or White Star Line. He's singing away.
Her voice sang.
It's romantic, isn't it, Tom?
Very romantic,
he said, then miserably to me.
If it's light enough after dinner, I want to take you down to the stables.
The telephone rang inside, startlingly, and as Daisy shook her head decisively at Tom, the subject of the stables, in fact all subjects, vanished into air. Among the broken fragments of the last 5 minutes at table, I remember the candles being lit again, pointlessly, and I was conscious of wanting to look squarely at everyone, and yet to avoid all eyes. I couldn't guess what Daisy and Tom were thinking, but I doubt if even Miss Baker, who seemed to have mastered a certain hearty skepticism, was able utterly to put this fifth guest's shrill metallic urgency out of mind. To a certain temperament, the situation might have seemed intriguing. My own instinct was to telephone immediately for the police. The horses, needless to say, were not mentioned again. Tom and Miss Baker, with several feet of twilight between them, strolled back into the library, as if to a vigil beside a perfectly tangible body. While trying to look pleasantly interested and a little deaf, I followed Daisy around a chain of connecting verandas to the porch in front. In its deep gloom, we sat down side by side on a wicker settee. Daisy took her face in her hands, as if feeling its lovely shape, and her eyes moved gradually out into the velvet dusk. I saw that turbulent emotions possessed her, so I asked what I thought would be some sedative questions about her little girl.
We don't know each other very well, Nick,
she said suddenly.
Even if we are cousins, you didn't come to my wedding.
I wasn't back from the war.
That's true.
She hesitated.
Well, I've had a very bad time, Nick, and I'm pretty cynical about everything.
Evidently, she had reason to be. I waited, but she didn't say any more, and after a moment I returned rather feebly to the subject of her daughter. I suppose she talks and eats and everything?
Oh, yes.
She looked at me absently.
Listen, Nick. Let me tell you what I said when she was born. Would you like to hear?
Very much.
It'll show you how I've gotten to feel about things. Well, she was less than an hour old and Tom was God knows where. I woke up out of the ether with an utterly abandoned feeling, and I asked the nurse right away if it was a boy or a girl. She told me it was a girl, and so I turned my head away and wept. All right, I said. I'm glad it's a girl, and I hope she'll be a fool. That's the best thing a girl can be in this world. A beautiful little fool. You see, I think everything's terrible anyhow,
she went on in a convinced way.
Everybody thinks so. The most advanced people. And I know. I've been everywhere. and seen everything and done everything.
Her eyes flashed around in a defiant way, rather like Tom's, and she laughed with thrilling scorn.
Sophisticated. God, I'm sophisticated.
The instant her voice broke off, ceasing to compel my attention, my belief, I felt the basic insincerity of what she had said. It made me uneasy, as though the whole evening had been a trick of some sort to exact a contributory emotion from me. I waited, and sure enough, in a moment she looked at me with an absolute smirk on her lovely face, as if she had asserted her membership in a rather distinguished secret society to which she and Tom belonged. Inside, the crimson room bloomed with light. Tom and Miss Baker sat at either end of the long couch, and she read aloud to him from the Saturday Evening Post, the words murmurous and uninflected, running together in a soothing tune. The lamplight, bright on his boots and dull on the autumn leaf yellow of her hair, glinted along the paper as she turned a page with a flutter of slender muscles in her arms. When we came in, she held us silent for a moment with a lifted hand.
To be continued,
she said, tossing the magazine on the table.
In our very next issue.
Her body asserted itself with a restless movement of her knee, and she stood up.
10 o'clock,
she remarked, apparently finding the time on the ceiling.
Time for this good girl to go to bed.
Jordan's gonna play in a tournament tomorrow,
explained Daisy.
Over at Westchester.
Oh, you're Jordan Baker. I knew now why her face was familiar. Its pleasing, contemptuous expression had looked out at me from many rotogravure pictures of the sporting life at Asheville and Hot Springs and Palm Beach. I had heard some story of her, too, a critical, unpleasant story. But what it was I had forgotten long ago.
Good night,
she said softly.
Wake me at 8, won't you?
If you'll get up.
I will. Good night, Mr. Carraway. See you anon.
Of course you will,
confirmed Daisy.
In fact, I think I'll arrange a marriage. Come over often, Nick. And I'll fling you together. You know, lock you up accidentally in a linen closet, and push you out to sea in a boat, and all that sort of thing.
Good night,
called Miss Baker from the stairs.
I haven't heard a word.
She's a nice girl,
said Tom after a moment.
They oughtn't to let her run around the country this way.
Who oughtn't to?
Inquired Daisy coldly.
Her family.
Her family is one aunt about 1,000 years old. Besides, Nick's going to look after her, aren't you, Nick? She's going to spend lots of weekends out here this summer. I think the home influence will be very good for her.
Daisy and Tom looked at each other for a moment in silence. Is she from New York? I asked quickly.
From Louisville. Our white girlhood was passed there together. Our beautiful white.
Did you give Nick a little heart-to-heart talk on the veranda?
Demanded Tom suddenly.
Did I?
She looked at me.
I can't seem to remember. But I think we talked about the Nordic race. Yes, I'm sure we did. It sort of crept up on us, and the first thing you know...
Don't believe everything you hear, Nick,
he advised me. I said lightly that I had heard nothing at all, and a few minutes later I got up to go home. They came to the door with me and stood side by side in a cheerful square of light. As I started my motor, Daisy peremptorily called,
Wait! I forgot to ask you something, and it's important. We heard you were engaged to a girl out west.
That's right,
corroborated Tom kindly.
We heard that you were engaged.
It's libel. I'm too poor.
But we heard it,
insisted Daisy, surprising me by opening up again in a flower-like way.
We heard it from 3 people, so it must be true.
Of course I knew what they were referring to, but I wasn't even vaguely engaged. The fact that gossip had published the banns was one of the reasons I'd come east. You can't stop going with an old friend on account of rumors. And on the other hand, I had no intention of being rumored into marriage. Their interest rather touched me, and made them less remotely rich Nevertheless, I was confused and a little disgusted as I drove away. It seemed to me that the thing for Daisy to do was to rush out of the house, child in arms. But apparently there were no such intentions in her head. As for Tom, the fact that he
had some woman in New York
was really less surprising than that he had been depressed by a book. Something was making him nibble at the edge of stale ideas, as if his sturdy physical egotism no longer nourished his peremptory heart. Already it was deep summer on roadhouse roofs and in front of wayside garages, where new red gas pumps set out in pools of light. And when I reached my estate at West Egg, I ran the car under its shed and sat for a while in an abandoned grass roller in the yard. The wind had blown off, leaving a loud, bright night, with wings beating in the trees, and a persistent organ sound as the full bellows of the earth blew the frogs full of life. The silhouette of a moving cat wavered across the moonlight, and turning my head to watch it, I saw that I was not alone. 50 feet away, a figure had emerged from the shadow of my neighbor's mansion and was standing with his hands in his pockets, regarding the silver pepper of the stars. Something in his leisurely movements and in the secure position of his feet upon the lawn suggested that it was Mr. Gatsby himself, come out to determine what share was his of our local heavens. I decided to call to him. Miss Baker had mentioned him at dinner, and that would do for an introduction. But I didn't call to him, for he gave a sudden intimation that he was content to be alone. He stretched out his arms toward the dark water in a curious way, and far as I was from him, I could have sworn he was trembling. Involuntarily I glanced seaward, and distinguished nothing except a single green light, minute and far away, that might have been the end of a dock. When I looked once more for Gatsby, he had vanished, and I was alone again in the unquiet darkness. End of chapter 1.
All right, that was chapter 1 of The Great Gatsby. So, I actually like the voice actress for Daisy. I think she does a good job. I think it's Tom, her husband. He sounds a little older. Like, the city was like 30, and he sounds older than 30. I know this is volunteer work. It's so they just get who volunteers to do the reading. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, they were pretty good. Let's see, discussion questions. Yeah, it was Tom. Oh yeah, I accidentally downloaded the wrong version of this because I wanted to do the dramatization, and the guy was pretty monotone. Have you checked out LibriVox before? Yeah, it's all. I mean, they don't all have everyone, but they have a lot of classic audiobooks, and I've been listening to the Tarzans, and like they'll have series, and it's not the same reader for each book, and so two of the readers had different names for one of the characters, or different pronounced the name differently. It was like a cut, and I think another reader was like acute or something like that. But yeah, one thing I noticed about when I start a new book is it takes me a couple chapters to kind of get into it, even if it's a book series I've read before. Like like started like book one, and then book two, then like book three. Even after that, it takes me a while to kind of get into it. So I'm still kind of. So it'll probably take me a couple weeks to kind of really get into what the story's about on The Great Gatsby. It's pretty short. It's 9 chapters. But they're all around half hour, except for chapter 7, which is an hour and 3 minutes. So I'm gonna have to check out the movie after we finish the book. Because didn't they do one with Leonardo DiCaprio? Yeah, so I'll have to check that out after we finish the book. But any thoughts on the book or chapter 1 we can discuss before we kind of end it? Yeah, I mean, they've barely any Gatsby in this, like just a couple of mentions here and there, and then at the very end he sees them. So. So I think once we kind of actually meet Gatsby and kind of get to know him, it might be a little more, can kind of gather what's going on. But yeah, I'm planning on making this. I have like a YouTube where I release full VODs of my streams. But I was thinking we'll actually do have its own a story time YouTube channel that I'm going to put these on. Just this section. And then I think once we finish it, I'm going to just take the chapters with the gameplay and convert it into like one long video. With the idea that like, oh, some high school student has to do a report on The Great Gatsby, and instead of reading it, they're just gonna go look on YouTube and, oh, here's the whole video. But yeah, I think that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for chatting. At one point we had like 6 viewers, so but yeah, this is good. I'm looking forward to next week to kind of get more into the story of what's happening with the Great Gatsby. Who is Gatsby? Why is he great? But yeah, we'll end it here, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll be starting Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. And yeah, the important question is, why is he great? So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a good rest of your night. Bye.
To mend my fractured heart, Kingdom Hearts.